Downtown Cleveland. Midday. Busy, loud, normal. A white officer, tall, calm, built like control, stands over a black woman sitting on the sidewalk. She's 7 months pregnant. Hands on her stomach. One sandal off. One wrist already zip-tied. "You people think the world owes you everything," he mutters. "Get up. I'm not your nurse." She can't stand. He knows that. He kicks her. Hard. Once. Her body folds in half. A scream, quiet but sharp. No one moves. Not the people eating lunch on the patio nearby. Not the woman behind the coffee window. Not the man walking his dog. The officer turns around, calm. But someone's already filming. From across the street. Inside a black SUV. The door opens, and out steps someone in a gray suit, sunglasses. Badge clipped to his belt. He doesn't shout. He just says, "You picked the wrong person, officer." They thought she was just another nobody. What they didn't know, she was the key witness in a federal corruption case. And they just blew it wide open. He thought she was alone, that no one cared, that nobody saw. If you did, comment. I care now. Talia Monroe wasn't supposed to be out that day. Her OB had told her to stay off her feet. 7 months in, blood pressure high, feet swelling by mid-morning. But Talia had never liked being told to rest, not when resting meant depending, not when the world didn't slow down for black women, pregnant or not. So she went out, just for a short walk, to get some air, to clear her head before the next round of phone calls from the DOJ. She didn't wear makeup, didn't bother fixing her hair beyond a scarf. Just leggings, sneakers, a loose tunic dress, and a stack of paperwork in a manila folder clutched her chest. That was all. The sidewalk was busy. Lunchtime in downtown Cleveland. Office workers spilling out of elevators. Food trucks lining the curbs. Street musicians near the park across from the courthouse. She stepped carefully. Every few feet, she paused, shifted weight from left to right. Her stomach felt tight, but not dangerously so, just stretched. That's when she saw them. 2 cops, white, mid-40s, standing near the corner, talking to each other, but scanning the crowd. One of them had the look, not mean, just permanent disapproval. Jaw too tight, shoulders back like a billboard. Talia didn't make eye contact. She turned the corner, headed toward the federal building. Her appointment wasn't until 1:30, but she wanted to be early, get through security, sit down, drink water. She never made it to the door. It happened fast, too fast for it to be about anything real. She passed a man, white khaki pants, Bluetooth headset, who accidentally bumped into her as he turned. Her folder slipped. She crouched to pick it up. Before she could stand, the cop's voice hit her from behind. "Ma'am," on the ground, hands where I can see him. She froze, looked up, confused. He was already moving. I said, "Hands up. Now. I'm pregnant." He didn't care. One swift motion. He grabbed her arm, twisted it behind her. Her left knee buckled. The folder spilled again, resisting. "No, I'm not." He pushed her down, knee to her back. Another voice tried to intervene. A younger woman somewhere behind. "She's pregnant." The cop snapped back. "Stay out of it." Then the kick. Not to her stomach, but close enough. A side blow sharp to her lower back. Her breath collapsed inward. She let out a sound she didn't know her body could make. Half cry, half cough. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She couldn't. All she could do was protect the only thing that mattered. The life inside her. She curled, tried to breathe. The street kept moving. No one helped. Not the dog walker. Not the barista watching through the window. Not the people on the cafe patio who'd gone silent, pretending to scroll their phones. And the cop? He stood back, adjusted his belt, looked around like nothing had happened. "You okay now, sweetheart?" She didn't respond. He didn't wait. Turned his back and walked toward his partner. And that's when it happened. The black SUV across the street. Door opened. A man stepped out. Gray suit, sunglasses, calm. But something about the way he walked, direct, without hesitation, shifted the air. He didn't run, didn't shout. He approached the officer with the steady pace of someone with nothing to prove and everything to record. Pulled out a badge. Not local. Federal. Agent West. Department of Justice. The officer blinked. "Excuse me." You just assaulted a protected federal witness. Silence. Then chaos. The partner stepped in. The officer, now pale, tried to explain. We had no idea. She was acting erratic. She was picking up papers. We thought she dropped contraband. She dropped a folder. She didn't identify herself. She wasn't required to. West turned his head. Get medical. Now. Talia was still on the ground, breathing, but barely. He crouched next to her. Ms. Monroe, you're safe now. Don't speak. Just breathe. She nodded or tried to. The ambulance came within minutes. By then, 3 more cruisers had arrived, but not for backup, for reports, for explanations, for damage control, because a federal agent had just watched a city cop kick a pregnant woman, and not just any woman. The woman about to testify in a federal corruption case, one involving members of that very department. She was taken to the hospital. Ultrasound confirmed the baby was stable. No internal bleeding, but bruising and a spike in stress-induced blood pressure. She stayed overnight, didn't speak to reporters, didn't check social media. She asked for 2 things. Water, her folder. When arrived, bent but intact, she opened it and checked the last few pages. Everything was still there. Every date, every document, every name. She exhaled. The next day, the video surfaced. Not from Agent West, from a cyclist across the street. He'd been filming the moment the cop yelled. Hadn't meant to catch anything meaningful. Just background noise for his vlog. But the camera didn't lie. The sound of her folder hitting the ground. The commands. The kick. The way no one moved. And then the SUV door opening. By noon, the city was on fire. Not literally, in print, in offices. Not just because a cop had attacked a pregnant woman, but because she wasn't anonymous. She was already part of an active federal investigation. And now, she was the case. The hospital was clean. Too clean. The kind of clean that smells like bleach and fear. Talia Monroe lay in the corner room of the maternity floor. Lights dimmed. Fetal monitor blinking green every few seconds. The sound was soft, almost soothing, but everything else was tension. Her blood pressure was stabilizing. The baby was fine. No broken bones, just bruises on her back, wrist, ego. And still, the nurses avoided eye contact. Even the ones who whispered, "That's her," behind curtains. They knew. Everyone knew. But the silence wasn't out of ignorance anymore. It was out of institutional habit. A lawyer from the DOJ visited the next morning. Not a man. A woman, Latina, late 30s, flat shoes, eyes sharper than the folder she carried. Her name was Camila Herrera, and she didn't come to comfort. She came to document. Talia, I know you're tired, but we need a timeline, not just of yesterday, of everything. Talia sat up slowly, reached for her notebook. I already have it. She flipped it open. Every call, every date, every attempt to report what she saw at the station 6 months ago. Every time it got lost in review. Camila flipped through it in silence, then said, "We're going to need to move you immediately." They relocated her under protective custody, not for safety, for optics, because the Cleveland PD was already under federal oversight. And now the woman they had failed to protect had been kicked in public on camera. Camila didn't flinch. She worked fast, filed federal assault charges, filed obstruction notices for evidence tampering, contacted internal affairs, logged everything. But even she looked tired when she said, "This isn't about the kick anymore." Talia nodded. It's about the cover before it. The news cycle moved faster than the system. By day 3, headlines were national. Pregnant black woman assaulted by cop was key witness in federal probe. Systemic sabotage? DOJ scrambles to protect whistleblower after attack. Social media split. Some called her brave. Others called it fake, staged, exaggerated. Another distraction. Talia didn't read the comments. She had work to do, because entering the system didn't mean she was protected. It meant she was in the belly of the thing that tried to erase her in the first place. They took her to the federal building through a service entrance. Not for security, for shame. No one wanted the press shot of a pregnant black woman being escorted through the marble lobby. Not when she was the whistleblower. Not when they'd failed to shield her. Camila led the way. Elevator to the 6th floor. Conference room with no windows. 3 agents. 1 attorney. 1 stenographer. Talia sat, opened her folder, laid it flat, and began. I was a civilian tech contractor for the 7th Precinct Records Office. I was hired to digitize arrest reports and categorize them by code violation. They nodded. 6 months in, I noticed patterns. Same officers, same neighborhood, same fabricated citations, same refusal to attach body cam footage. I flagged it to my supervisor. He said, and I quote, "You're reading too much into things. That's how these cases are processed." Camila made a note. "Did you continue logging the patterns?" Talia nodded. "Every day, every night. I printed double copies and mailed one to my sister across town, just in case." She reached into her bag, pulled out a USB drive. "This is everything. Dates, names, report numbers, blank timestamps, repeated statements across multiple arrests." The lawyer reached for it, paused. "You understand what happens next, right?" Talia nodded. "They're not going to try to discredit me." "No, they already did." Camila assigned her a case ID, assigned agents to verify the files, notified the U.S. Attorney's Office. Within 72 hours, a federal review of all 7th Precinct activity was launched. But internally, resistance began. The precinct issued a statement. "We are cooperating fully with the investigation. At this time, we are not aware of any misconduct beyond the isolated incident involving Officer Grant. That was the man who kicked her. Isolated." Talia blinked. She opened her folder again, pulled out Grant's arrest logs. Over 100 citations in 12 months. More than 70% involved Black or Latino individuals. Over 40 had the same description in the report. Subject appeared erratic, non-compliant, threatening posture. Even when body cams weren't activated. Even when subjects were elderly, or minors, or, like her, pregnant. Talia brought this to Camila. "This isn't about one cop. It's about a pattern of sanctioned behavior." Camila nodded. "We know, but we have to move carefully." "Why?" "Because if we push too fast, they'll collapse the evidence under privacy claims." "You're saying the system will protect itself?" Camila didn't answer. She didn't have to. That night, someone tried to access Talia's hospital records. A digital ping blocked by security. The IT log showed it came from a device registered to a precinct administrator. Coincidence? No one believed that. Talia changed locations again, this time under alias. No press, no digital traces, just encrypted contact through Camila's team. She called her sister. "I'm safe, but I'm not quiet." "Good. You were never meant to be." More data came in. Anonymous leaks. An officer from another district sent an internal memo, flagged from 6 months prior, suggesting a pattern of citations stacking on minority civilians. A public defender emailed Camila. "We've been trying to fight this for years. But without data, it's always anecdotal." Talia's proof? It's the first real map. The term caught on. The map. Talia's data visualization. A color-coded breakdown of manipulated records, officer overlaps, missing footage, duplicate language. It circulated through legal forums, civil rights groups, even Capitol Hill. One senator tweeted, "It's not just the kick. It's the map, the cover-up, the years of patterns." Talia didn't celebrate. She read everything, annotated every response. Not for ego, for accuracy. Because once you've been erased once, you learn to record everything. Talia Monroe didn't cry when she got kicked. She didn't cry at the hospital. Not when her ribs were bruised. Not when she had to sign her own protective custody orders. Not when a lawyer told her she may not be able to go home for a while. But the moment she saw the photo of her sister's mailbox, ripped open, paper scattered, she had to sit down. It had been left there. No note, no damage to anything else. Just exposure. A warning. The DOJ agents filed an incident report. Cleveland PD denied involvement. Of course they did. But no one was pretending anymore. The rules had shifted. Because now the system wasn't trying to stop Talia. It was trying to hurt her. Make her rethink. Make her question. Make her retreat. They weren't attacking her physically anymore. They were coming for her credibility. It started small. A local columnist published a piece titled, "Whistleblowing or Revenge? The Case Against Officer Grant Gets Complicated." The article quoted unnamed sources from within the department. Ms. Monroe had previously been reprimanded for unauthorized access to files. Her performance was questioned multiple times. Talia had never been reprimanded, not once, but that didn't matter. The headline spread faster than any truth. Then came the background checks. Suddenly, blogs and forums began digging into her college years. She dropped out once, took a semester off to care for her mother, worked at a payday loan office in between. Now one blog titled a post, "Activist or Opportunist?" Inside Talia Monroe's troubled path to tech, they used words like unstable, emotionally reactive, lacks a clear professional path. The kicker? They published a screenshot of her Facebook post from 5 years ago, an angry all-caps rant about police after a local shooting. She'd written it the day after a child in her neighborhood was killed. They didn't mention that part. Talia watched it unfold, didn't flinch, but her sister did. Why are they going after your past? Because they can't argue with my data. But your name is already gone in their eyes. Now they're trying to make sure everyone else sees it the same way. The DOJ assigned a press liaison. Too late. Talia's name was out there, and the questions came fast. Why didn't she report this sooner? Why is she the only one speaking? If it was so bad, how come no one else came forward? That last one cut deepest. Because others had. She'd met them, spoken with them, but they weren't safe enough to go public. And now, watching her get torn apart, they were less likely to speak than ever. Then came the leak, a redacted portion of her testimony, submitted privately to the DOJ, showed up on a right-wing podcast. The host read it aloud, laughing. She says, "I feared retaliation." Honey, retaliation is what happens when you lie and someone calls you out. The crowd laughed. Talia turned off the screen, not in anger, in preservation. But the line, the true line, was crossed when they came after her baby. It happened through a medical report mysteriously sent to a local blog. It claimed inconsistent readings in her fetal scan, suggested possible drug interactions. Not confirmed, not signed, but published. By the next morning, the headline was everywhere. Monroe's health history raises questions about pregnancy mental state. That's when Camila called, and Camila never called emotionally. We're escalating this to federal witness sabotage. Too late. No, Talia, this is the line. The line was the kick. This is the smear. Camila went silent. Then, do you want to pull back? We can postpone proceedings. Let things settle. If I do that, they win. If you don't, they might break you. They already tried. But even steel bends. That night, Talia sat alone in the bathroom of her temporary housing unit. Lights off, back against the tub. And for the first time since it all started, she cried. Not for herself, for the baby. For the fact that this child would be born into a world where the truth had to fight this hard to breathe. And for the first time she wondered, is this worth it? Then the call came, from a blocked number, voice trembling, familiar. Talia, it's Brian. She froze. Brian was a former officer, the one who trained under Grant, the one who left the force last year without explanation. I saw the news and the posts, and I wanted you to know you weren't crazy. Everything you said about the reports, the missing footage, the recycled phrasing, it's real. She didn't speak. They used to joke about it, called it copy-paste justice. Just enough words to get the case processed without questions. Why now? Because watching them come after you like this, they're not trying to protect the badge. They're trying to protect themselves. And I won't be part of it. He paused. I have copies of the old arrest templates, some of the footage backups. They're not clean, but they're real. Will you give them to DOJ? Only if I can give them to you. She met him the next day. Neutral ground. A church basement near Akron. No press. No suits. Just two people who had both been told in different ways to shut up. He handed her a flash drive. They're going to know it was me. You okay with that? No, but I'm okay with not dying a coward. That night, she uploaded the files to Camila. No commentary, just one message. They kicked me in public. Now let's kick back with the truth. They didn't plan to invite her. Talia Monroe's name was never meant to appear on the witness panel list. The Cleveland Oversight Commission, a panel that had never once successfully held a single officer accountable in 15 years, was preparing its quarterly hearing. A public relations move, a show, a chance to say, "We care," before slipping back into silence. Camila knew it. So did the other DOJ staffers. But the data had made it unavoidable. The documents Brian had handed over, cross-referenced with Talia's own archive, revealed something worse than bias. Deliberate language engineering, templates coded to erase pattern detection, scripts designed to obscure misconduct under layers of repetition. They weren't just mishandling records. They were building a disguise. And now, with the eyes of the country watching, they had to let her speak. The invitation arrived via email. Short, cold. You are requested to appear before the Cleveland Oversight Commission as part of the public testimony on procedural integrity and departmental accountability. No apology, no acknowledgement, just a line, a crack, and Talia stepped through. The day of the hearing, the city buzzed. News vans, barricades, plainclothes officers posted on every corner. Inside, the council chamber was sterile. Long table, 12 officials seated in a row, nameplates, microphones, one visible camera feed for the live stream. Talia entered through a side hallway, not escorted, not protected, just present. And as she walked in, the silence changed shape. No gasps, just stillness. The kind that means they thought you wouldn't come. She didn't wear a suit, didn't dress for performance, just black slacks, a charcoal blouse, her hair tied back in a scarf. 7 months pregnant, now showing full and proud. She moved slowly but with precision, each step measured, each breath even. She didn't bring papers. She didn't need to. She was the file. The chairwoman cleared her throat. "Ms. Monroe, thank you for attending. We understand recent events have been difficult." Talia didn't blink, didn't respond, just waited. The mic was switched on. She leaned forward. "You don't need to thank me. You need to listen." And for the next 35 minutes she spoke. No notes, no embellishment. She laid out the timeline, her hiring, the flagged reports, the unanswered complaints, the data patterns, the erased names, the repeated language, the day she got kicked, the leak, the threats. She didn't raise her voice once, but the room got colder with every line, because no one interrupted. Not the mayor's representative, not the internal review director, not the police union lawyer seated in the back, trying to look invisible. They had nowhere to hide. She was the system's reflection, and it looked ugly. Then she paused, looked directly into the camera. You build a house that only protects itself, and you're shocked when someone drags a flashlight through it. But I didn't do this because I wanted to tear it down. I did it because my child deserves to be born in a city where silence isn't the price of survival. No one moved, not even the stenographer. When she finished, the room didn't applaud. They exhaled like they'd been holding their breath, and she stood, slowly, hands at her belly, and walked out. Not dismissed, not thanked, just done. Outside, the crowd stirred. They hadn't heard every word, but they'd seen her face, and something passed through them. A hum, not admiration, recognition, because Talia hadn't come to fight. She'd come to show up in a place built to make people like her disappear before they got that far. And in doing so, she opened a door no one expected to ever be walked through. 3 hours later, the live stream replay went viral. Clipped, shared, studied. Civil rights groups released statements. Tech journals dissected her findings. City officials scrambled to schedule follow-up hearings. But Talia, she was already home, feet up, curtains drawn, notebook open. She wasn't watching herself. She was watching the news ticker scroll across the bottom of the screen. Cleveland officer resigns after data leak confirms misconduct pattern. Federal review expands probe after testimony reveals systemic data tampering. Public response to whistleblower hearing reaches 3 million views in 24 hours. Camila called. "You're a witness now." "I always was." "No, I mean, you're no longer just a contractor, or a file number, or an internal complaint. You are a material threat to institutional denial. Talia laughed, soft, tired. Then they better start building a new kind of system, because the old one's bleeding out in real time. He sat in a folding chair, head down, hands clasped between his knees. For the first time, Officer Darren Grant wasn't in uniform. No badge, no belt, no posture of control. Just a man in a city office room with no windows, and a mirror that wasn't a mirror. A deposition room. Talia sat opposite him, not alone. Her lawyer to her right, a federal agent on her left, a stenographer in the corner, typing steadily, and a recording light blinking red. It wasn't a trial, not yet, but it was official. Grant was being deposed under oath. And Talia? She was here not to accuse, but to reveal. The chairwoman of the DOJ panel initiated. Ms. Monroe, you may proceed with your statement and direct response. Talia didn't speak right away. She looked at Grant. He wouldn't meet her eyes. She let the silence stretch, not to intimidate, but to reframe. Because for once, he couldn't talk over her, couldn't use a radio, couldn't wave a citation. The floor belonged to her. Officer Grant, she began, voice calm. You said I was resisting. He shifted, said nothing. You said I acted erratically, that I failed to comply with verbal commands, that I refused to identify myself. Still nothing. Do you deny those statements? His lawyer leaned in, whispered. Grant finally spoke. I don't recall the exact phrasing. Talia slid a paper across the table. That's your incident report, word for word. He glanced at it. It was standard language, copied from at least 40 other reports you filed, almost identical in structure and vocabulary. She slid another document. This is a forensic linguistics breakdown of your reporting patterns over the past 24 months. The lawyer interrupted. We object to the characterization. You can object, said the DOJ lead, but it's entered into the record. Talia continued. You said I lunged. I was 30 weeks pregnant. She let that hang. You said I was holding a suspicious object. It was a manila folder. Another pause. You kicked me. Silence. Would you like to deny that? Grant looked up for the first time. I was following protocol. Which protocol includes a kick to the back of a pregnant woman's ribs? He blinked. No answer. Because I checked, she continued. No such protocol exists. The stenographer kept typing. The red light kept blinking. Grant's breathing grew heavier. His lawyer whispered again. But Talia didn't stop. She turned to the DOJ rep. With your permission, I'd like to enter Exhibit B. The agent nodded. Talia tapped her laptop. The screen behind her lit up. A grainy video. The cyclist footage. Sound clear. Time code visible. Her folder falling. His commands. The kick. They let play in full. No commentary. Just reality. When it ended, Talia spoke again. That is the man sitting in front of us. And I am the woman he struck. Grant tried to speak. His voice cracked. I didn't know. Didn't know I was pregnant. Didn't know who you were. Would it have mattered? Silence. Because it shouldn't have. She leaned in slightly. You didn't kick me because of who I was. You kicked me because of what you thought I wasn't. The panel remained silent. The lawyer whispered something again, but Grant shook his head. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. Talia didn't move. Not to me. To the system you used like a weapon and expected no one would ever question. She stood, gathered her files. I'm done here. Outside, the hallway felt colder. Camila met her by the elevators. That was precise. I didn't need it to be loud. He'll never wear a badge again. That's not enough. Camila raised an eyebrow. Then what is? That his name stays in the training manual as a case study. So the next officer knows the badge doesn't make them invisible. Camila nodded. Consider done. 2 weeks later, the DOJ issued a formal statement. Officer Darren Grant is permanently barred from law enforcement service. The deposition findings confirm a pattern of excessive force, falsified reporting, and procedural abuse. A new policy, the Monroe Standard, will be implemented across all departments receiving federal funding. They called it the Monroe Standard. All use of force incidents must include officer-submitted body cam footage with synchronized time code. Report phrasing flagged for repetition or template usage must trigger automatic review. Officers facing civilian whistleblower complaints are immediately placed under third-party investigation, not internal. Talia didn't tweet about it, didn't post, didn't give interviews. She sat at her desk, closed the folder marked "Deposition Complete," and opened another one, blank, clean, for whatever came next. Because justice wasn't an end. It was a door, and now she'd walk through it. They couldn't save Officer Grant. That part was done. He was out, off the force, out of the system. But the people who built the system around him, they weren't finished. Because what scared them wasn't the deposition. It was what came next. Talia Monroe had proven she could stand in front of a federal panel and dismantle an officer's defense without raising her voice. She had become a symbol. And symbols, especially when they're black, female, and quiet, are dangerous. They couldn't shut her up. So now, they try to unwrite her. It started as a whisper, a blog post unattributed, claiming Talia pressured another officer to falsify documents. No sources, no screenshots, but enough innuendo. By the next morning, it had 50,000 shares. 2 days later, a YouTuber uploaded a 12-minute investigation into Talia's career history. Let's look at how she got here and what she might be hiding. He showed yearbook photos, old tweets, a clip from a protest years ago where Talia had shouted, "We're not asking anymore." He slowed it down, zoomed in, paused, her face mid-expression. Aggressive? You decide. Camila sent the clip to Talia. "We can get it flagged." "No, let it live." "Why?" "Because they want me to react." "I won't. Not yet." But it didn't stop there. An anonymous tip was sent to several journalists. It claimed Talia had accessed medical data without clearance during her contract role. It was false, but vague enough to stick. Suddenly, headlines changed. Whistleblower or manipulator? Was Talia Monroe justified or strategic? Truth or tactic? And the comments followed. Too calm equals rehearsed. Too articulate equals fake. Too pregnant equals sympathy card. That was the game. They didn't need to prove she was wrong. They just needed people to wonder if she was ever really right. Then came the lawsuit, filed by the Cleveland Police Union, not against Talia directly, but against the DOJ, claiming the Monroe Standard was enacted without fair departmental input, and that it caused irreparable harm to officer morale and public trust. The intent was clear: make the policy toxic, and make Talia the reason it existed. Her email inbox filled with hate, anonymous threats. "You should have stayed down. Next time the kick won't miss." She reported them all, but the silence afterward was worse, because for a moment she started to wonder, is this how it ends? Not with a headline, not with a win, but with the slow erosion of truth. Even Camila began to hesitate. "Talia, we might need to step back." Why? The public sentiment's turning. Sponsors are nervous. The DOJ's not saying it officially, but they want distance. Camila didn't deny it. So what? Let them rewrite it? No, but we might have to give it space. Talia stood. They kicked me in front of a city, and I stood up in front of the country. Now you want me to disappear quietly so everyone else stays comfortable. Camila looked down. Talia turned away. "I'm not disappearing, and I'm not done." But the worst blow didn't come from outside. It came from someone inside the DOJ. A junior staffer leaked a confidential file, an internal memo. One line was enough to spark fire. "We acknowledge the risk of over-amplifying Ms. Monroe's personal narrative as central to the case, which may overshadow the structural reforms." That was it. But it said what everyone feared. She wasn't the hero. She was a PR risk. She didn't cry, didn't rage, just closed the screen. And for the first time in months, turned her phone off completely. She stayed offline for 3 days. No statements, no posts, no calls. She walked, a lot, around parks, by the river, past buildings where her story once echoed through marble and microphones. And she realized something. She had been trying to win in a system built not to lose, but to absorb. Her truth hadn't defeated it. It had just made it nervous. So now it was adapting, and that meant she had to adapt, too. On the 4th day, she made one phone call to Brian, You still have the backups? Yes. All of them? Everything we pulled before the review. Upload them. Not to DOJ. To the archive. He understood. I'll encrypt it. Add verification logs. Timestamp trails. Good. You sure about this? They made it about me, so I'm making it about all of us. She created a site. Simple. Dark background. White text. No ads. No tracking. No names. Just a headline. The pattern never lies. Below it, interactive maps. Redacted documents. Verified data trails. Links to every public statement. Audio clips. Transcripts. And a single quote. You can erase a person, but not a pattern. Not forever. Within 24 hours, it was viral. Not flashy viral. Functional viral. Teachers used it. Lawyers cited it. Activists translated it. And for the first time since the deposition, Talia didn't have to speak. The evidence was speaking. News outlets scrambled. Some backtracked. Others ignored it. But the people who mattered, they clicked. And they stayed. Longer than they stayed for outrage. Because now there was proof without personality. And that was more dangerous than any press conference. The site went live. No ads, no editorials, no commentary, just data. Cold, clean, unavoidable. And while mainstream media cautiously reported on it, while some departments doubled down and others held integrity roundtables, a ripple started somewhere else. Not from a journalist, not from a lawyer, from a janitor. His name was Marcus Whitlow. Worked nights at the Records Building, floor 3. He didn't say much, kept his head down, showed up early, left late. He'd seen the story unfold on break room TVs, like everyone else. He remembered the day of the kick. He remembered thinking, he didn't even scream, and then he forgot, or told himself he did, because it wasn't his fight. He just emptied the trash. But then he saw the website, and something in his chest moved. He recognized the file names, the metadata style, the naming convention. He'd seen it when dumping old hard drives from the tech bin 2 years ago. He remembered pulling one out of the pile because it was still warm, like someone had tried to delete it right before dumping it. He didn't know why he kept it, but he did. Back then, just a hunch. Now, a responsibility. He took it to the one person he trusted, his daughter, Angelica, 21, a junior in data science at Cleveland State. She plugged it in, ran a diagnostic, and froze. Dad, this is backup data. Unofficial. Not cloud-stamped, but it's formatted in the same way as the department logs. He asked if it was useful. She said, it's not just useful, it's the missing piece. They contacted the DOJ. Camila met them the next morning. She didn't blink when she saw the drive. She just opened her laptop and verified the contents against the existing archive. It matched, but this one had timestamps. Every altered record, every deleted entry, every revision made before a citation was filed. Even the login IDs tied to them. And one name appeared 73 times. Not Grant. Someone higher. Captain Doyle. He had testified weeks earlier. Said he had no knowledge of any data alterations. Now, he was cooked. Camila nodded slowly. This isn't just truth. It's chain of custody. It's accountability. And it came from someone who didn't owe us a damn thing. She turned to Marcus. Why now? He shrugged. Because I'm tired of pretending throwing out the garbage means I never smelled it. The DOJ issued an emergency notice. A new wave of review began, not of beat cops, but of supervisors, the people who approved reports, the people who closed cases without review, the people who trained the Grants of the world. And just like that, the conversation shifted again, not away from Talia, but beyond her. In a press conference 2 days later, Camila stepped up to the podium. She didn't speak long, just one paragraph. A member of the Cleveland Records staff provided a digital key that unlocks months of previously unrecoverable data. We now know that systemic abuse of language and protocol didn't happen in isolation. It was signed off, encouraged, and when challenged, buried. That is no longer an option. That same day, another surprise arrived. Not from a whistleblower, from a courtroom. A public defender named Mona Reyes filed a motion to reopen 17 past cases dismissed under the old reporting standard. Attached were documents Talia had surfaced. And something else. A voice memo of a conversation between Mona and a precinct supervisor from 2 years ago. We know this kid didn't do anything, but the officer needs a win. So we're going to let it slide. You want to keep working the city or not? The judge approved the motion, and in doing so acknowledged for the first time on record that Talia's work had relevance to prior miscarriages of justice. Not theory, precedent. Talia read the motion from her couch, didn't smile, just stared at the words. She thought of a kid whose name she didn't know, of the family who probably cried when he was arrested, of the quiet that must have followed his dismissal. And now, 2 years later, a new sound, reckoning. Not loud, but real. She received an email. No subject line, just a name she hadn't seen in months. Kendra Vasquez, an old coworker. They hadn't spoken since the week before the attack. Back then, Kendra had said nothing, had seen the signs, the friction, the complaints, and stayed out of it. The email was short. I watched you testify. I watched them come for you. And I told myself I had nothing to add. But I do. Attached. 3 internal memos. All signed. All stamped. All showing that senior personnel had flagged Talia's concerns and ignored them. And one note handwritten on the side. Too much heat. Tell her to stand down. Politely. That note was initialed by Doyle. Now the pattern had a face. The people who let Grant do what he did weren't just silent. They were complicit. DOJ moved swiftly. Subpoenas, internal interviews, audits of training documents. Captain Doyle resigned within the week. He cited personal health. But the city knew. Everyone knew. The door had cracked again. And this time it didn't slam shut. Talia didn't call a press conference. She just updated the site. One new tab. Unexpected witnesses. Inside, Marcus's drive. Mona's motion. Kendra's memos. And this line. The truth survives when those who once stayed quiet refuse to stay that way. You can't hold something broken together forever, especially when everyone's pretending it isn't broken. And by the time March rolled around, the Cleveland PD wasn't holding the line. It was patching holes with duct tape. They tried to spin the news cycle one last time. Captain Doyle retires with honor. Data mismanagement under internal review. No evidence of criminal conspiracy. But it was too late. The files were public. The patterns proven. The excuses worn out. And then it all came down. The first real crack was small. A training audit at the police academy. Normally routine. This time, they brought in outside evaluators. Not consultants. Federal analysts. They reviewed 10 years of curriculum and flagged dozens of entries. Lecture slides referring to command language that encouraged escalation. Role-play scenarios with built-in assumptions of guilt based on demeanor. A lack of any modules on nonverbal disability cues. And buried deep in one lesson plan. A case study citing a woman being non-compliant and evasive when she didn't immediately obey a shouted command. The name? T. Monroe. It was her. They had turned the kick into a teaching tool. As if it were justified, the city tried to deny it. But one of the instructors anonymously posted the slide deck. It went viral. Again, this time, there was no mercy. Within a week, 2 high-ranking officials resigned. But not with press conferences, with memos, 1 line each. I failed to uphold the standard I was entrusted to protect. The city launched a full departmental review. Then came the external lawsuits, from civil rights groups, 2 from previously convicted individuals citing bias, 1 from a community coalition demanding the Monroe standard become federal law. And then, something no one expected. The Cleveland police chief stepped down, voluntarily. No scandal, no cover-up, just a statement. If we want to be believed, we have to stop pretending we did everything right. The line echoed across the country. Meanwhile, Talia received an invitation to speak, not at a conference, but before Congress. They were drafting a bill, the Civilian Protection in Data Enforce Act. It included mandatory third-party audits of police report systems, federal standards for language and arrest documentation, legal safeguards for civilian whistleblowers. Her testimony was requested. She didn't rush to say yes. She sat with it for days, then weeks. She didn't fear speaking. She just didn't want to become a symbol for a bill they'd water down after the cameras left. So she called Camila. Do they actually want to pass it? Some do. And the rest want the photo of you walking into the chamber. Talia exhaled. Fine, but I won't read what they write. Then write your own. The hearing was scheduled for Tuesday. Packed. News crews, activists, skeptics. She wore black again. Not for drama, for clarity. Her statement wasn't long, but it was exact. We do not want your pity. We do not need your outrage. We need your system to stop rewarding erasure and punishing documentation. The Monroe Standard is not a theory. It is a map. Follow it or admit you'd rather stay lost. When she finished, 3 of the Congress members stood. The others watched, but didn't interrupt. For once, silence wasn't resistance. It was recognition. Outside the chamber, a journalist called her name. Talia. Do you think the system's finally changing? She looked at him. No, but now it has to pretend it is. And that's where change starts. The next month, the bill passed committee. It was renamed the Monroe Reform Act. Still not law, still being debated. But this time, it wasn't just about force. It was about the words. And who got to write them? Back home, Talia didn't celebrate. She returned to her apartment, watered her plants, sat by the window. The baby kicked. She smiled. Not because she won, because the system had finally bled enough to notice the wound. And in cities across the country, others noticed too. Departments quietly updated their training. Academies rewrote case study material. Nonprofits launched tools to detect linguistic bias in reports. No headlines, just adjustments. Because that's how systems crash. Not with fire, but with the weight of too many truths finally documented at once. The crash had already happened. Now came the aftershock. Not from officials, not from protests, not from new legislation, but from people. Quiet ones, people who'd watched, sat next to her, worked down the hall, liked a post, laughed at the wrong joke, said nothing, and now couldn't forget. The first message came on a Tuesday. No subject line. Just, I was across the street that day. I saw him kick you. I didn't film it. I told myself it was overreacting. That maybe you said something. But you didn't. You just bent over to pick up your papers. And he kicked you. I'm sorry I wasn't braver. Signed, H. Mitchell, Cleveland Municipal Maintenance Department. Talia didn't reply. She printed the email, pinned it to her bulletin board, next to the ultrasound, next to the Monroe Reform flyer, next to a post-it note that read, "Don't let it be a moment. Make it a map." 3 days later, another came. This one in person. She was leaving the OBGYN's office when a woman approached her. Black, mid-50s, professional. "Ms. Monroe." Talia turned. The woman's face trembled. "You don't know me. I work in admin at the courthouse. I remember your first report filing. I processed it, and I didn't escalate it." She paused. "I told myself it wasn't my job, that it wasn't flagged urgent, that if it was serious, someone else would do something." She swallowed. "You were right, and I was wrong." Talia didn't flinch. "What made you come now?" "Because I couldn't sit through another training where your name was mentioned and pretend I wasn't part of why it had to exist." No hug, no tears, just truth. Spoken, finally. More came. A defense attorney who once dismissed her concerns as non-actionable. A city council intern who had overheard the captain laughing about the pregnant snitch. A former classmate who had reposted a smear tweet without reading the article. One wrote, "I said, she's probably just angry. I didn't realize how much damage we do when we confuse anger with warning." They didn't come asking to be forgiven. They came because they couldn't forget. Camila called. "You're becoming something no one planned." "What's that?" "Memory." Talia went to the corner again. Not to protest. Not to pose. Just to stand where she had once bent down. Where the folder fell. Where the kick landed. Where silence echoed. A teenager pastor slowed, looked. "That's the spot, right?" She nodded. "Yeah. My teacher showed us the video. Said the system hit you. And you made it tell on itself." He smiled awkwardly. "You okay?" "Getting there." "Good." He walked on. Talia stood for a few more minutes, then left. She received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. Old school. "I was a trainer at the police academy in '08. We used to tell new recruits not to get distracted by complaints, to stay focused on procedure. But what we meant was, ignore them. We called it streamlining. You were one of the cases we overlooked. I'm sorry. I don't expect a response. I just needed to finally say the thing that's kept me awake for years. No name, just the closing line. Some mistakes don't deserve comfort. They deserve acknowledgement. She shared it anonymously on the site, labeled it reckoning/unnamed/training. The post went viral, but not because of outrage, because of relief. Relief that someone was finally saying what so many others had always felt and never dared to name. A few weeks later, she visited a community center. They had started a new seminar series. What silence costs. She didn't teach. She just listened. A 13-year-old girl stood up and said, "My mom says we used to pretend people like us didn't belong in rooms like this. But now we get invited because someone got kicked and didn't disappear." One day she received a voicemail from Heather, the officer who had once stood by Grant, silent. She didn't say sorry. Just this. "I was there. I didn't stop him. I froze. And then I told myself I didn't need to speak because everyone else had already seen it." But that's not how it works. The moment we start assuming someone else will say it, that's when it never gets said. Pause. You don't need to respond. I just needed to finally stop pretending I wasn't part of it. Talia saved the message. Didn't post it. Didn't erase it. Just let it exist. Because reckoning isn't always about confrontation. Sometimes it's about leaving the truth where everyone once avoided it. And then one more came. A name she hadn't seen in over a year. The cyclist. The man who filmed the first video. He had vanished after posting it. Now an email. I turned off my phone for 3 days after it went viral. I wasn't ready. I was scared I'd done something wrong. Like, what if they came for me next? He explained how he had deleted his account, moved cities, started over. But then I saw you at the hearing, and I realized I hadn't posted evidence. I had posted proof, and then disappeared, hoping someone else would hold the weight. He asked if she wanted him to come forward. She wrote back, "You already did what mattered. Now do what's right for you." Some people came to Talia. Some sent notes. Some just stopped her in grocery stores, buses, sidewalks. They didn't all say the right thing, but they said something, and that was more than most systems ever get. She didn't tell anyone she was going. Not Camila, not her sister, not the DOJ, not even the people who now called her the reason they believed again. Talia packed a small bag, wore black, pulled her hair into a tight bun. The belly was lower now, 2 weeks from full term. Every step a little slower. Every breath a little deeper. She didn't come to reopen the story. She came to end her part in it. The building hadn't changed much. Cleveland Records office. Gray walls. Faded seal above the main door. The automatic sensor still clicked late. She walked through the side entrance. No badge check. No escort. She knew where she was going. 3rd floor. Room 3B. Back hall behind the copy room. Once marked. Civilian contractor desk 04. The desk had been cleared. A new nameplate. Different laptop. Empty corkboard. No one noticed her. She sat at the bench by the vending machine. Pulled out a notebook. Opened to the last page. Blank. She clicked a pen and wrote. It ended here. Not with a charge. Not with applause. But with me choosing not to be angry anymore. She closed the notebook. Stood and walked. Next stop, the file room. Cooler. Quieter. Still untouched by redesign. She scanned the shelves. Found the one marked. 2023 internal citizen flags. CLE. There in the middle. Monroe T. She pulled it. Opened it. Inside, just one page now. A copy of the original complaint. Stamped. Reviewed, confirmed, reform triggered. She folded it. Slipped it back. Closed the drawer. Not with anger. Not with finality. Just with breath. Then the elevator. Ground floor. Out into the sun. Cleveland air was sharp that morning. Cold on her throat. But clear. She turned left. Walked 2 blocks. And stood in front of the courthouse gate. The exact spot where she was kicked. The sidewalk had been repaved. No stain. No mark. But she remembered the crack. Where the edge of the folder had torn. Gone now. She crouched slowly, carefully, and laid a small card on the ground. White, plain. It read, "The truth fell here," and stood back up. No name, no photo. She walked away. Later, she took the long route home, stopped by a small community library. Inside, a staff board. Faces of community heroes. Teachers, volunteers, nurses. At the bottom, a frame had been added. Monroe Standard Archive Access Portal. Launched spring 2024. Her face wasn't there, just a QR code. People could click and read. That was enough. At home, she sat in the nursery, everything quiet. The baby shifted. She put one hand on her belly, the other on her lap, eyes closed, breathing even, not waiting, just still. Later that night, she opened her laptop. One last upload, a single document. Monroe_final_entry.pdf. It read, "I was never the fire. I was the fuse. The truth was already lit. You just didn't see the smoke. Now you can't ignore it." She clicked publish, closed the lid. Her phone buzzed. A message from Camila. The bill passed the House. No celebration, just fact. Talia smiled, typed back, "Let it pass through people next." The next morning, the baby came early. No drama, no cameras, just a quiet hospital room. 10 fingers, 10 toes, strong lungs. They named her Nova because she arrived at the end of something and the start of something else. 2 weeks later, Nova's name appeared on a file. First child enrolled in city care under Monroe Standard Coverage Clause. No ceremony, just a digital form. Signed, T. Monroe,